Welcome back to Winton Motor Raceway in Victoria, and where an ominous grey sky tells a story about what might be expected today. Will it rain? Looks like Wayne Wakefield not taking any chances, Garth. He went out on slicks, which was, well, that could have been a very dangerous proposition. He's made the change to wet.
Well, you can actually see the rain coming down, and the track's already wet, so to be out on slicks would have been treacherous.
Now, this race, we should point out, the top 10 has been reversed from race 1, so therefore Robert Jones will start from the pole, and with Mark McNally being excluded from race 1, that lifts Robert Jones from 11th to 10th and then to pole.
Yeah, great lottery pick up there, and Robbie Jones starting off the front row, otherwise would have been the 6th row. Good opportunity to pick one up. Drew
Russell, just his second ever start in a V8 supercar. Dale Wood copped a post-race penalty in race 1. He's back from position 19. And Brett Hobson's had some engine dramas this weekend, not up the grid like we expect him to be.
Yes, and now we're getting down to the guys that were involved with that oil on the circuit, a long way down the back of the grid. They'll be wanting to fight back through. Chris Alexander out of 30th position.
Jose Fernandez having a difficult weekend. Mark McNally, as we described, is starting from the rear of the field, and Wayne Wakefield, he was going to start from the rear anyway, so he's going to start from pit lane once all the cars go by. Waiting for a set in race 2 at Winton. Robert Jones, he just made a little bit of a jump there. He gets the power down, but not as well as Marcus Sukanovic, the Opus Prime Commodore. Some new backing for him this weekend. He's going to lead them into 1.
Incredibly difficult to get one of these supercars off the line. As we see 3 wide into 1, and Luke Youlden having to take the shortcut through 1 and 2, and he'll join back pretty much where he was anyway, so no advantage going there, but the boys tiptoeing around on this first lap, finding what the grip level's all about.
Robert Jones, his first start in the Fujitsu series this year, the Repco Commodore. He's been driving the safety car, in fact, at some of the main series rounds this year. Look at the gap. He's starting to streak away. Luke Youlden in the older model AU Falcon, but given this weather, Garth, it really levels the playing field.
And Luke topped one of the practice sessions that was held in the rain earlier in the weekend, so he'll be looking to take advantage of this grid position where he is in second now, and trying to exploit a bit of clear track and pull up to where Robert Jones is.
2 Matthew White cars this weekend. Tim Slade, who drives the 29 car, moves across from the Dexion team, which are not competing here this weekend, but looks like Luke Youlden and the HPM Falcon just starting to go to work. He's already closed that gap on Robert Jones.
Yeah, obviously Luke, a lot of experience in these cars. He's been in this series for a long time, does the Sandown and Bathurst races with Stone Brothers, so a lot of experience. And Robbie, although he does plenty of miles in the safety car, hasn't done a lot of racing in the V8 Supercar this year.
Now this is something very different for these teams. The last time we had a wet race in this series was Bathurst 2005, and that race was actually called short, so you have to rewind back to Wakefield Park 2004, the last time that these guys have raced in the rain.
And I dare say that those guys were on the grid in 2004. A lot of them wouldn't be on the grid in 2007.
Very, very difficult conditions at this point of the race, particularly on tyres that are cold and wet tyres that perhaps haven't been run for a very long time.
Well, we haven't had any running for such a long time, so there's been so many wet tyres that Dunlop have had. They'll be loving this rain. Good for business. As we see Robbie Jones run it wide, and here we go through the shortcut.
He's going to escape.
Looks like the hot line, so really what Robbie has to do now is slow down, because he's only just in front of Luke. We can't actually gain a time gap there either. So as you see, Luke actually got around the outside, so that was to Robbie's detriment.
It's been a shocking run this year for Luke Youlden. A new sponsor in HPM, but things certainly haven't worked out. Back in the pack here, the fast car starting to come through. Look at this, Damien White, Jose Fernandez, Brett Hobson, Mark McNally, Jonathan Webb. They're all in there, and it makes it very, very difficult. It's really a patience game.
It is a patience game, and it's incredibly early in the race. We're only talking lap 2 of the first wet race we've had in 3 years. So the guys just need to find their way. Marcus Sukanovic up the inside of Robbie Jones, and if Robbie just hangs there on the outside, he'll be okay, because he'll be up the inside for turn 8. The guys giving each other plenty of room. Nice, clean racing.
Marcus Sukanovic holds the line. These are the slowest corners on the Winton circuit, but Robert Jones is going to argue on the outside. He's not going to have the grip out there though, but he is on the inside for the next turn at turn 10.
Yeah, the guys gave each other plenty of room there. A little bit of pushing and shoving, but nothing that anyone lost any advantage to. And Marcus just goes a little bit later on the brakes, runs wider as a result. There's a bit of garbage on the circuit from earlier cars, but Marcus up to 7 for second.
Familiar car there for you.
Great little car, that one. My car from last year, and keep an eye on it at all times.
Robert Jones, the older model VX Commodore, working pretty hard up against the newer model VZ of Marcus Sukanovic. Just had a tough weekend, had his practice times taken away earlier on. Here is the replay at turn 1 of Robert Jones, and in the end he decided that running straight through off the road was the better option than trying to make the corner.
Certainly was. Robert just went a little bit too late under brake, still finding where the grip is at the moment. Kane Scott up the inside of Adam Sharp, and I don't know, he was far enough up there.
Yeah, Kane Scott manages to escape Adam Sharp, the Englishman, who's off to compete in the Le Mans 24-hour in the next few weeks. Unfortunately, loses quite a few positions. Here's Andrew Thompson, our race 1 winner, and he is really struggling in that car.
And you can just hear, just off the throttle for a long time, very, very gentle on the reapplication of the throttle. Andrew's struggling with grip. You'd almost wonder whether he's on slicks out there.
Yeah, he looks to be struggling. They're really ganging up on him at the moment. And look at that, struggling to get the power out of turn 9. And look at Drew Russell around the outside into 10. And no disrespect to Drew, he's in an older model car. It's only his second ever V8 Supercar meeting, but to go around the outside of the pole man and race 1 winner, that's pretty impressive.
Great move. And but Andrew's doing the right thing here. He's not holding people up or getting in the way. He's struggling for one reason or another, so he's doing the right thing for the championship, keeping the car straight and just aiming to finish this one.
Dale Wood in the A&I Helicopter Services Commodore for Greg Murphy Racing. Damien White had a drama in qualifying with a loose oil line, managed to get a time just at the end of the session, and it looks like a mirror there bouncing around down the road.
It is, and goes for a couple of bounces, and they slide pretty well as well on a wet circuit. Maybe they need a wet weather mirror as well.
A souvenir for a lucky marshal, I guess, at the end of this race, provided no one runs over it. Scott Loadsman, the Tintercar Commodore, the brand new ex-Cirame Commodore, takes to the scenery at 1, and Gary Dean joins him down there as well.
Yeah, I think Gary Dean just went in sympathy, but you see Scott Loadsman grab the rear brakes and spin very early in the corner. In the wet conditions, you wind the brake bias to the rear, and it just caught Scott out.
Mark Howard in the pits, and out of this one, we're hearing he's had an off at turn 1 and a punctured radiator, so that's something that Scott Loadsman and Gary Dean managed to escape.
Yes, that's right, and you see often that the front splitter or the front air dam can get broken when you run through the grass there, and hole in the radiator for Mark Howard.
Our race leader, Luke Yordan, in the HPM Falcon. Look at the gap. He's streeting away in these conditions. That might be an older model car, but in the wet in race 2 at Winton, it's certainly a good package.
Yeah, it is a good package, and like I said earlier, he was fastest in the wet practice earlier in the weekend. Good job by Marcus Kanovic. I know he hasn't driven one of these cars in the wet before, and he's got a great gap over third place, which is Robbie Jones, who is slowly coming under pressure from Tony D'Alberto. So, Robbie, great job this race. Started on the front row, got a bit lucky to get that front row, but he's used it to his advantage and kept his nose clean.
It's been pretty solid here at Winton. The last time the series was here in 2004, he managed to finish 4th, a career best, but Tony D'Alberto in the GMAC Commodore, some new backing from the VACC this weekend. He's really starting to hunt him down, and let's not forget race 3, the grid's determined by the aggregate of race 1 and 2.
That's right, and Tony was second in that race to Andrew Thompson, and we've seen earlier that Andrew Thompson is struggling with grip for one reason. Go on board in his car, let's have a listen.
Here there, Garth, the explosion into wheel spin almost on the exit of 10.
Very, very common in these cars. As you get close to the shift point, around the 7,000 RPM point, the car will just break into wheel spin on the wet surface. And we see here, he's hung out wide, 3 cars up the inside. He's doing the right thing, though. He hasn't damaged the car. He's trying to stay out of trouble, just get to the end of this race.
How frustrating is this as a driver when you know you haven't got the machinery under you to even fight with anyone? You have to let them go.
It is frustrating, but this is championship-defining stuff. If you can have a bad race, keep the car straight, and live to fight another day, it shows that a young guy's learning on the run, and he's doing a great job, even though he's struggling for pace.
Mark McNally in the second of the D'Alberto team cars, picks off Thompson with ease on the run down into turn 3, the old turn 1, and McNally started position 35, is having a really solid weekend on what is his team's test track.
Yeah, he's fighting back from that rear grid penalty in the first race, and just see the windscreen of Andrew Thompson's car. He needs a washer bottle or something like that to give the windscreen a wash, so just clear indication of what visibility is like in these wet conditions.
Tim Slade, the Timken Falcon, the second of the Matthew White cars. Colin Cedars in behind there, and look at those gaps from our race leader Luke Yordan. Andrew Thompson between 7 and 9 seconds per lap slower. That's amazing.
That's a lot of time, and that would suggest that you would think that he's on slicks, because that's about the differential between wets and slicks in these conditions. It is drying out, but that's a huge amount of difference in lap time.
Luke Yordan has dominated this race ever since he took the lead in the HPM Falcon, and it's been so frustrating for Luke this year. It's important to get miles before he teams up with Russell Ingall at Sandown and Bathurst, but the season so far, there's been some accidents, a car that's let him down on a few occasions, but it's nice to see that everything's working in harmony this weekend.
Well, the wet conditions is a true equaliser, and Luke might not have the equipment available to him this year that others have, but you can see here that as soon as it's wet, he's using the opportunity to his advantage. He's got a good lead, and I wouldn't imagine he's going to make too many mistakes here.
Oh, speaking of a mistake, Marcus Sakanovic makes a small one on the run into the S's at turn 1, but like so many before, and I'm sure there'll be a few after, manages to escape out the other side. And more dramas for Colin Cedars, the exit of turn 4, and he's collected quite a bit of grass there.
And good to see green grass, something we haven't seen in this part of the world for a long time. So doing his bit for the groundskeepers here at Winton Motor Raceway.
Jonathan Webb charging through the field in the Stone Brothers Ford, started position 24, and a guy with not much V8 supercar experience, but has been pretty solid here this year and also this weekend in what a very changeable condition.
Yes, it's very, very difficult conditions, wet, dry, and now on a greasy circuit that's drying out on hot, wet tyres. It's difficult conditions, so good job by Jonathan.
Kane Scott has worked his way by Robert Jones to take 4th place, and I guess that's an issue, Garth. At this stage of the race, is it at the point where these wet tyres are starting to go away and you're chasing the water as parts of the circuit dry?
Oh, here we go. Robbie Jones straight back up the inside, so good job by Robbie. Will he pull it up in time?
He does.
Yes, he does. Good move.
Very nice move.
Getting back to your point, though, about the hot, wet tyres on a drying circuit, it's just looking at the conditions, it probably hasn't got to that stage yet. It looks like there may be a sprinkle of rain still around, so the wets will be getting hot without getting that marshmallow feel that they do when the track really starts to dry out. So you don't have to go looking for the wet just yet. But we see here Robbie Jones actually pulling away from Kane Scott again.
Kane Scott should be really used to these sort of conditions back home in New Zealand. Finished runner-up this year in the NZ V8 series held over summer. Luke Gilden out in front, and a really comfortable leader now, starting to lap some traffic. Yeah,
just picking his way through the lap traffic. He's got plenty of time to do it. No need to do anything rash. And Luke, plenty of experience in these conditions, so you would expect that he would have a pretty comfortable lead.
Now, if he can hang on here and the results stay the same, he's going to put himself on the front row for race 3. That's a great run for him this weekend after a weekend that began with an incident in practice where another car actually crashed into the side of his Falcon.
Yeah, great fight back by Luke, and really using this race to set up his weekend. And like you say, starting up the front of the grid for the 3rd race will help him, and he'll fight on.
There was the margin. Here is the Opus Prime Commodore, some new backing for Marcus Sakanovic this weekend. Runs in position 2 on the road at the moment. Not too far to go in this one to hang on to what will be his best race result of 07.
Yeah, good start and good fight back for the weekend also for Marcus. Got disqualified from qualifying for a tyre infringement, and now running 2nd in race 2, so obviously a great fight back, and if he can stay here, that'll keep him up the front of the grid for the start of race 3. Now,
speaking of being at the front for race 3, Tony D'Alberto, there he is, just coming onto the main straight. Runs 3rd at the moment, which will be good enough to put him on the pole for race 3.
Yeah, all about collecting points for the championship. Very, very tight point score this year in the development series, so it's all about collecting points at every opportunity. And these reverse grid races, or the reverse top 10 races, are always an opportunity for something to go wrong. And Tony stayed out of trouble. Wet race, so it's difficult to get through the pack, and hasn't rushed, just slowly made his way up through the field.
Now, how hard is it being a young driver? You were there once upon a time. To pace yourself and to play it steady. Tony's got the advantage this year of Glenn Seaton in his corner. That's got to be a real help.
That's a huge help, just having someone that's been there, done that, seen it all before, and just relaying all the information to Tony. The race isn't won at the start, it's won at the end.
How much does that speed up a learning process in terms of years at a time?
Oh, I think you need to look at Tony's results this year compared to his previous campaigns in the Fujitsu series. Obviously doing a lot better job this year, and a lot calmer, staying out of trouble.
No one's been able to catch this car. The HPM Falcon, driven by Luke Gilden, was here in this series, in fact, 3 years ago. Drove for the Super Cheap Auto team, the Steve Adlery-owned Ford squad, and finished equal on points at the end of the year with Andrew Jones. But Jones was declared the champion on a countback. But Luke Gilden bringing it through the final turn. He's done a great job in this race, has had the pace, has kept out of trouble, and brings it towards the checkered flag. It'll be HPM Racing's first win in the Fujitsu V8 Supercar Series. Luke Gilden, untouchable in the wet.
Yeah, great job by Luke, no mistakes, and just controlled the race. And once he got that gap, just controlled the car and brought it home.
Marcus Sakanovic pedalled pretty hard there, brings it home from a front row start to finish in 2nd spot. And Tony D'Alberto, the big picture championship becomes all the more important. 3rd place in race 2 gives him pole for race 3.
Yes, and Robbie Jones in 4th, great finish for him, kept it out of trouble.
Michael Caruso, rear of grid to 6th. Terry Wyhoon great job too to finish there in 7th. And Darwood fought his way through into the top 10, but a very happy man. His first win in this championship this year. Luke Gilden, HPM Racing Team.
The wet's a great equaliser, isn't it? I mean, we were quick here in practice in the rain, and we were actually, praying for rain, and it came. And obviously we started at the front there, and we managed to put our head down and create a big gap there and win the race.
And our race 1 winner, Andrew Thompson, certainly struggled in race 2. Looked like he made the wrong call and went out on slicks.
We ended up going out on wets that time, and it's sort of, I think the tyres that we ended up choosing just weren't a little bit hard, and we just couldn't quite get too much traction out of it. So it was sort of a bit of a bad choice, but we start 6th for the next race, so hopefully maybe it dries out and we can go from there.